All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have John. Let me say that again. I'm
John
almost.
Holland back. I was on some time ago.
All right, let's do it again. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have John Holland here with me on the show. John is a renowned psychic medium, spiritual teacher, author, and radio host. Super excited to have you here. Hey, John, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Brandon, how are you? Glad to be back.
Yeah, really glad to do this. This is going to be, I know there's a lot exciting and new in your world that I'm excited to hear about. Before we jump in, I do want to start with my cliche opening question,
Sure.
which is this. You are in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Dogs.
Dogs. I like it. I haven't gotten that answer. I love it when someone gives me something unexpected that's not super cliche, so thank you for that.
Well, I mean, as much as I love doing mediumship and helping people, Brandon, right? We'll talk about this too. There's so much with animals and dogs that I'm involved with right now too, and I didn't know I'd love them so much. I mean, I had mine for 16 years. He just
Wow.
passed last July.
Wow.
So it was when I got him that I realized, oh my God, it touched my soul, and I went in a whole new direction with my work, which we'll probably talk about. Yeah.
Wow. I look forward to hearing about that. I'm curious. I already have questions, but but before I ask any of those, why don't, if you would, just give us a little context, backstory, whatever feels relevant to share to, just let everyone know who the heck they're hearing from.
Sure. Let me see. I am a Hay House author. I'm a psychic medium. I've been doing this work 3 decades. TikTok.
That all?
30 years. I signed my first book with Hay House in 2000. The first book came out in 2003. So I'm just had 20 years with them, and I'm still with them and still touring with them and writing. And so that's But I was very intuitive as a kid. I think more and more people are intuitive lately, or more sensitive. The new word I hear all the time, not so new, is empath. I'm empath.
Yeah,
I'm empathic. Right. We all are. And I look at it this way, Brandon. Are we more empathic, or is something happening in the world? Is the consciousness of man raising and the other side is getting lower? I think there's a shift that's happening. Obviously, we can feel it.
It was one of my questions to ask you, so you jumped right
I'll
to
ask
it.
all your questions. You don't even have to talk. I'll get it. But I've been doing this, I was like this as a kid in New England. Irish, cool. Italian, Catholic, 5 kids. I was always the different one in the family, where the word psychic wasn't really known. My grandmother knew things. She was the grandmother that knew things. So don't do anything in front of Grandma Rose. Yeah. So so I was always different, always fascinated as a child. And that's what people should focus on too, is what were you passionate about as a kid? What turned you on? What did you love doing? What books were you reading? What did you do when your time was flying by when you were younger? There's a clue right there, Sure. I was fascinated with magic, chemistry, science, religion, theology books, any religious movies, Moses, Lady of Fatima, any movie like that on TV. I mean, here I am as a kid, 6, 7 years old, reading metaphysical books, the ones that they had, in the early 60s or late 60s, whatever. And I was like that. And I knew things I couldn't possibly have known, who was going to come over, who was ill. And I would repeat people's sentences. And of course, even back then, there was bullying, right? Oh, he's weird, he's strange. But when it comes from your own family, that's when, you just shut up about it. I just kept it hidden. Then I moved to where you are. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 24. Around 30 years old, I got into an accident right on the 10, Santa Monica. Okay. Wow. When it rains there,
it's like a national emergency.
Well, I mean, you had some pretty funky weather there lately, but years ago when it rained, it was like people were like, it's acid coming down on you, be careful. So I got into an accident and it shook my world. It literally, I believe we all get wake-up calls in our life. You don't get too many of them. And I feel like that's just soul's way of saying, all right, here's another opportunity to shift. And how long you been in LA?
Almost 5 years in LA.
Okay, I lived there for 12 and I was there in my 20s. LA was a happening town, a party town. I'm in my 20s. I was in a relationship I shouldn't have been in. That accident woke me up to reality, and I became, without getting too metaphysical on you, I became aligned. I got my life together. When I became aligned, going back to the psychic work or psychic studies, that's when synchronicity took over. I left a relationship. I got my own place. I started studying Reiki and psychic work.
Mm-hmm.
Not how to. What are the mechanics of this work? How
Mm-hmm.
does your psychic ability, which we're all born with, which just psychic means of the soul,
Yeah.
how does it work? And I started getting more and more in there and started doing readings right off of Santa Monica Boulevard at a
Oh.
aromatherapy shop,
Oh,
still
wow.
keeping my day job. And that's when it really took off. People on the other side showed up after 2 years of doing the work. It
Wow.
just shifted. And one thing led to another, to go to England, to coming back to the States, to meet in Hay House, getting on Unsolved Mysteries, all the local
Mm-hmm.
TV shows, History Channel,
Yeah.
A&E. So it just, but you know what's weird? I never set out to say I want to be a medium. All I was doing was following my passion.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it was easy, but
Yeah.
all the doors opened up. And that's the backstory. Here I am 30 years later, with
Wow.
7 books and on. Yeah. So,
I love
yeah.
that because you, like you said, it wasn't like you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You're
No,
literally following the nudges. You're following the flow of what's
that's
unfolding.
right.
And it's like, eh, I had my first, I guess you could say, medium ship experience recently of information coming through in a dream, and then it led to some really tangible things the very next day in my life, and it was like, wow, the synchronicity and of it all. And it was like I wasn't seeking it, I wasn't even looking for it, it just sort of
Right.
opened up in that moment. And of course I've had a
Yeah.
lot of synchronicity and spiritual breadcrumb things happen that I've shared over the years on the podcast, but that was a new one where information is coming across the veil that becomes meaningful, useful, and
Yeah.
shifts reality.
Yeah. Well, you want to share that? I mean, you had a dream. Was it mediumistic or was it
Yeah,
psychic? There's
well,
a
yeah. I
difference.
mean, the listeners probably laugh. My girlfriend laughs at me because I've shared this story so much in the last few months because I find it so exciting. But I'll share it with you since you ask. Twist my arm. I'm in the dream state, and my grandfather is there, and actually, he was my first psychic sort of happening in 1985 when he died. The day
Mm-hmm.
he died, I was a little kid in church, and I remember looking at my watch and saying, "Oh, he's going to die today. What's the date?" And just kind of playing it out, fantasy-ish.
Right.
And then hours later, he dropped dead. And years later, I've had some things where I felt, yeah, that helped me understand why I needed to remember the date, was what I kind of said.
Sure.
And anyway, that's sort of a sidebar. But here I am in the dream state a few months ago, and Joe is his name. Joe and my grandmother Moo, who I was really close to, they're there. It's like I've got him on the line. I broke through, and I was excited in the dream. And he said,
Sure.
"Hey, Brandon, I want to introduce you to my friend from World War II. His name is Peter Finch." And now I didn't know who this was. I thought my grandfather, Joe, he was at Pearl Harbor when it got bombed. And his ship,
Wow.
the Utah, is still sunk in the harbor. It was the first ship to get hit. He jumped and swam, and his friend standing next to him, died. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, like, you got to write down Peter Finch, World War II, I'm thinking maybe it was his friend next to him on the ship. I don't know. The next day, luckily, I wrote it down because I grabbed my phone. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I was half asleep. And so I go and I search Peter Finch. Is this a real person? Boom.
Yeah, an actor,
Instant.
isn't he? He's an
He's
actor,
an
isn't he?
actor. Yeah. So my son,
You're
I don't know
so
if
you're
you
so
know.
young. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you know Colby Rebel or not,
Of course,
but
I know Colby
okay.
Rebel.
So she's a friend of mine, and when my son was 18, I took him to Colby as a gift. Like, hey, why don't we get you a reading? She's a good friend,
Sure.
and she's like, oh my gosh, his spirit guide is Charlie Chaplin. I've never had a celebrity spirit guide before. He's going to be this big actor and all this stuff, and he's now 25. He's been in 50 productions in the last few years. He's really dedicated. And, at that time he hadn't acted at all. So instantly Peter Finch is real, and he's a famous actor, first actor to win an Oscar after he passed. And I'm like, this must be connected to Bradley, my son. So later, then I'm reading his Wikipedia. Further down in his Wikipedia, after all his acting accolades, he's also known for being in a famous battle called the Battle of Darwin in World War II as a gunner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my
Okay.
gosh, he's real. There's a connection. And, he's in World War II. Wow. And later that day, I'm walking out the door to go play tennis. And my friend's already en route to the courts. And my son, he'll text me from time to time and say, hey, can you help me with the self-tape? Read lines opposite, before I
Sure.
turn them in, usually, within the next day or two. And he sent me one, and he doesn't usually even say what it's about or anything. And he's like, Dad, I got a last minute audition request for a self-tape. I got to turn it in within an hour. It's for a World War II film. And so I'm like, wow. oh my gosh. Of course I cancel I wouldn't have canceled my plans, but because of the dream, I cancel, hey, sorry, I know you're en route. I got to do this. I'm reading lines opposite him, and his part, character is from Kentucky, like a young private, and I'm like, hey,
Sure.
Kentucky, how about I just stand behind you and say moo? Like, which was my
Your
grandmother
mother's
who was with
name. Yeah.
Joe, we called her Moo. And I'm like, okay, now I'm calling him Moo. Well, and then the next day he
And
submits it
that was
that
on the
night.
script, and that was
Yeah,
in the words.
yeah, that was in the
Okay.
words. I got to
Yeah.
call him Moo. And then the next day he gets called back. They hire him on the spot. 2 days later, pictures of him in the trenches as a gunner in World War II. And he just
Wow.
actually got that footage a couple days ago. So he's been waiting for it to do his new reel to kind of try and get a bigger manager and everything. And it's the
Brilliant.
best footage he's got that's, sort of high production. So yeah, that was a very cool,
Is there a way that you could check, on a side note, is there a way to check the records to see if he was in your grandfather's
that's
battalion?
a great idea. I had not.
Right? They get this records of the ships and
Oh,
everything
you're
who's on
totally
it.
right. I hadn't even crossed my mind. He might
Yeah.
actually be his friend, and when he was living, I didn't.
Come on, you can't. And for all the skeptics out there, say, "Well, that's a coincidence." That's a whole nother thing, is too. I'm writing a lot about synchronicity in my new book, right? How it happens. And somebody said to me recently,
stories.
"Well, remember this too." So I heard an author say, "When synchronicity is the universe getting personal."
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
Perfect quote, right?
The universe, the YOU universe.
Exactly. So that I would take that as a very mediumistic dream, because you weren't crying. There was no drama in the dream. That's an ADC, after death communication, which was coined by Bill and Judy Guggenheim in their book, Hello from Heaven. And people have dreams of their loved one if they're usually younger, happy, healthy. I had one of my mom, and she said, Johnny, and I went, Ma, and we hugged, and she was young and vibrant, and then it was over. That's how I knew, and it touched me. So that dream you had too, though, obviously you're getting some type of guidance. And I don't look at that as woo-woo, but look at who you're talking to. To me, it was like, good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah. It was very exciting. It was, it was a fun, like I said, I have quite a bit of spiritual breadcrumb synchronicity stuff that there are some pretty magical stories, but that's the first time I've had something that, like, hey, this is information across the veil that is going to serve you. Because I wouldn't have, if he'd hit me up to do a tape, I'm like walking out the door like, no, but it was like time sensitive,
Right.
So we'll see. Maybe that will lead to a big break for him. Or
Come on. What are the chances of the World War II? I mean, World War, he's playing the soldier, the gunman, and Moo behind you.
Right.
Which is the wife of the grandfather who came through.
And who was there, in the dream, standing beside him.
Talk about guidance.
Yeah. Really
That's great.
Yeah. Fun. I'm really fun to get to share that story with you, who, that's been such a big part of your life and your work. And I know you mentioned prior to us recording that you've really taken, a bit of a turn, and your work is somehow changing. So maybe, please share what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always be a medium, and I'm always glad to help people, with grief. I do a lot of volunteer work for grief organizations, where I just, with the group called the Forever Family Foundation, where they test mediums. You go there, you just volunteer your time. We don't get paid. We sit with some people, like 50 people for the whole weekend, 2 other mediums. And what I love about it, really love about it, it's they mix science with mediumship. So the scientists are there, the parapsychologists. So it's a fantastic organization. But I realized too that during COVID, I was getting more into a lot of stuff about the soul. I wrote Power of the Soul. Get this, 2007. Everything is about the soul purpose now, soul passion.
Yeah.
I wrote about that in 2007.
Cool.
But so that long ago, so Power of the Soul, Inside Wisdom for an Outside World, I'm using a lot of that now these past couple of years. I realized too that people, they always want a message from their loved one, but things were changing where they were saying, John, can I talk to them to the other side myself? Are they still connected to me? What are they doing? Can they see me here? So I was getting, I try to teach people the souls that are over there, right? That's discarnate. Your soul incarnate. You have a soul, a spirit here. It's just that it's attached to the body.
Right.
You are a body that comes with a soul, not a soul that comes with the body. You are a soul first, right?
Yeah.
So I try to tell people the same magic, the same energy, the same abilities there you have here.
Yeah.
So I started getting into more soul purpose, about soul blueprints. I believe that we're all born with a seed. All
Mm.
right. It's a passion. If people are like, well, I don't know what I'm doing here, go back to what you're passionate about
Yeah.
as a kid. What turns you on? Not what people said you should be doing.
Yeah.
Get a job, get the 401k, work 9 to 5, follow, retire at 65.
Yeah.
No, follow where your passion is, and you're going to stop living other people's stories, Rob.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other people's stories make money. Who do you think you are? Why would you want to do this? Yeah,
Yeah.
and we believe it. So it's letting go of those negative thoughts. I got more into passion and emerging. What is emerging from people? With me, it was animals. I was getting more into energy work, aura, energy, healing ability. I didn't see somebody doing it, and I said, I want to do that. I kept coming back to it. And if something
Mm.
keeps coming back to you, Rob, Brandon, sorry, Rob is another Brandon.
All good.
Yeah,
I've
it's
been called
fine.
worse.
Yeah, okay. Moo.
Yeah. There you go.
When something keeps coming to you, like, you know what, I want to take that dance class. I want to take I keep that art class. If something keeps coming back to you, that's your soul's way of saying, do this,
Yeah.
do this. Your soul tries to guide you, but we're so disconnected from it because of everything that's happening in the world, which is a lot of stuff,
Mm.
so we get pulled away from it. It's going to keep coming back. I started getting into healing again.
Mm.
When I was in LA where you are, I took Reiki 1, Reiki 2, which is simple healing, which nurses can do it now and they get credited. I went back to Reiki 1, Reiki 2 to get recertified, to put it back in my memory, my consciousness. And then I was certified as an animal Reiki practitioner, where I work on animals.
Cool.
So I started getting into dogs. I mean, my dog, I have a passion for dogs. I volunteer at the SPCA in New Hampshire.
Wow.
I have a fund with them called the Coda Fund. And after 10 years of doing events, right, they give the money, $250,000 was raised to help animals save lives.
Wow.
So to pay for operations that they might not be able to pay for.
Right.
So I love doing it. There's a dog park. I now work with hospice dogs that are about to pass. This is a woman, old dog. Get this: old dogs go to Helen. Old dogs go to Helen. Right.
That's
So when
funny.
she people will call her from shelters, and if she has the space on her farm for dogs, they'll say, look, there's somebody here, there's a dog here that's not going to have a lot of time left. And what's sad is people drop dogs off when they're too old, maybe, or they're sick and they can't afford it. So these dogs are with people their whole lives, and then no one wants to adopt them because they're older. She'll take them so they can die in peace, so they can die, so they can pass over with love. Now that is a volunteer. So I do that once a month, and it's changing. I'm not chasing this. I'm letting the signs take me where I'm supposed to go with this also. And now I'm working on a book about signs and synchronicity and spirit, right? With another author, which I'm not going to say yet, but
cool.
I'm writing. I wrote my last book, Bridging Two Realms, Learn to Communicate with the Loved Ones on the Other Side, which helps people through grief. I thought I was done, really done. And then it emerged again for me. And then I found the perfect person to write with. So that's what I'm talking about. That's where my work is going. I still do mediumship. I still do some shows. I'm slowing down a little now.
Yeah.
Right? I'm teaching more, and we'll just see. I don't have any expectations. I kind of know where I want to go with it, but not really. So I drop the yours.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with you, probably. Drop the yours. Sometimes you take the yours and you steer towards a goal. Other times it's time to let it go and see where the river of life takes you. I'm going to drop the yours and see where it takes me.
I think that's a wise decision. It's something I've sort of been, I won't say forced into, but life has time and time again. I've always been like, I always jokingly say my initials are BBB. And I think I came in that way because I'm trying to overcome doing. And
oh my God.
And so, I really recently realized, like, okay, just stop chasing anything, Brandon. Like what time you have left, however much time you have left, find the thing that lights you up the most in service. And that is going to be, I've sort of had the stance with chasing money and I've always wanted to be a billionaire, like, so I could help everyone. I mean, it's well intended and myself, but it's like, the universe has really led me on a goose chase of, oh, here's you from your friend's couch to an Inc. fastest growing private company in a $30 million buyout. Oh, sorry. Within 12 hours of that, we're going to cause, your business to blow up and that to disintegrate. And so,
Right.
I'm just like, I'm just done chasing. And it's like, okay, whatever's left, make me an instrument of peace and service. And so I love that you've come to that conclusion as well.
Right.
Like, get out of the way and let the soul be your pilot, as Sting wrote in the beautiful song,
Right.
And
And remember this too, when somebody comes into a class, they want to be a medium, right? Everyone wanted to be one years ago,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There was
yeah.
all these classes were filled, and I knew that some would come into it. They were being called to it, or they saw some of them were doing it to feel special, or they thought
Yeah.
that they want to. It's not something that it's either in you or you're not. I think we're
Yeah.
born with the potential for it.
Yeah.
If you're not, you have to just work harder. But
Yeah.
everybody has a gift, talent, and ability to be all that you. This is the purpose. This is your sole purpose: to be all that you can be, a
Yeah.
divine being from God, using your gifts, talents, and abilities to help others. That's exactly what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? So don't worry about you as long as you're aware, right? And you can say, okay, I'm dropping the oars, and let's say, just be aware that expect the unexpected, an opportunity that comes doesn't mean to just check it out, right? Just check it
Mhm.
out, and watch for the signs to come to you, and you should be okay. I mean, because you're an aware kind of guy, and you know this,
Yeah. Follow the
so
breadcrumbs. I love that you say that. Expect the unexpected. It's like,
yeah,
or I think Wayne Dyer said it. I always loved, I'm realistic. I expect miracles, and I
right,
think that's, if you just get into that state of receptivity and follow those impulses, like, I don't
yeah,
need to try and force something out of fear of not being enough or
yeah.
whatever. And I
Well,
think that's
I'll
part
tell
of all.
students too, Brandon. I'll tell students, look, they say, I want to be this kind of me. I say, look, Spirit, help me to work the way you want me to work, not the way I want to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, Jesus, take the wheel. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Take the wheel. Yeah. And as
Right.
long as you have an intention, and good thing to focus on, though, Brandon, too, instead of like, okay, if you don't know where you want to go, right? At least what's the feeling you want,
Yeah.
to get there? I want to feel peace. I want to feel love. It's the feeling. You could do all the affirmations you want. The perfect relationship is coming to me now. Those are just words. You've got to feel it, see it, and believe it. Not worry about or listen to other people's story or those negative thoughts that are gonna talk you out of it. And there's gonna come opportunities where people will kick shit. They will kick things in the ass.
Yeah.
Where you live, right?
Mhm.
I was living in Santa Monica. I was teaching a small psychic development class, and there was this one woman. Now, cable TV, right? Okay, cable TV.
Mm.
When I mean cable TV, I'm talking about where the local one, right? The cable
Yeah.
channel where you go. So there's a student there. Her name Maria, and she went to cable TV. She learned how to use cameras, how to use the mics, directing, producing. We had our own little cable TV. Now, when you say cable, you think this. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the cable.
Yeah.
So she was trained how to do this in all aspects. She wanted to work in a TV studio right down the road. Is it still MGM down there? I mean, is it, or Sony owns it?
I
And
don't recall seeing it, but
okay, well,
I'm
it's right
not
there in
always the
Culver
most.
City, right? MGM,
Uh-huh.
where Wizard of Oz was filmed, right up the
Right, right,
road from.
right. Huh.
So she got a job there and an offer to, as a production assistant. So she's in. So she didn't come to class anymore. And I said, oh, she must be working. I said to another student there, I said, hey, how's Maria doing at the studio? She never took the job.
Mm.
She felt she wasn't good enough and was scared to take it. So she
Wow.
does all this work. Her soul
Wow.
guided. She's doing this work, right? Everyone, okay. Whether you're watching me now or listening on the, on the podcast audio, she does all this work, gets it, and then says, I'm not good enough. So her soul says, hey, guided her, here you go, and then kicks it in the ass and says no.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she ever went back to it, but she did the
Wow.
work. She deserved to be there. So, yeah. So if an
That's
opportunity
brutal.
comes, don't poo-poo it right away.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to realize, like, what I often will say, we're in such an age of judging, such an age of followers and likes and,
Oh my God. Yeah.
comparison, seeing people's highlight reels on social media. And it's like, look,
It's
understand
overwhelming.
the truth of the situation in which you find yourself. You're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. Everything you see is a reflection in some way, shape, or form of you. You are as worthy as any other being ever has been, could be, or will be. The only
That's right.
thing that can prevent you from experiencing the highest potential is that silly story that just is not based in the reality of the situation. You are worthy. You deserve it like anyone deserves it, if anyone ever
Yep.
has. And
Yep.
that's sad to see people that, and of course it's part of their path, and they're going to grow and learn from it, obviously. But wow, just to not have, to have such low self-worth that you then just kind of piss away the opportunity.
It's working on words can inspire, transform, help you to evolve, but they can also hurt, especially the ones we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's coming to you, the negativity, you were taught it somehow, some way, from somewhere. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Just think about it. Well, my dad used to say that to me.
Yeah.
And you take it on teachers, society, the world, or what you should be. And now, like you said, with social media, this is how it should be.
Yeah,
this is how you should look.
You're not a billionaire by 23. What's wrong with you?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the kids now. I mean, the ones that are in school. It's like this is how you should be.
Yeah.
It's So you got to be careful of that too, especially for the up and coming kids too.
Yeah, it's a definitely a different world than when we grew up, and yeah, I'm glad I grew up when I did, just before the computer digital age really took hold. But I'm curious, to get back to something of course, what you were talking about earlier, the dog thing. I'm curious, are you having, as you connect more and more with these animals, first off, one of the great things about social media is seeing some of the most incredible dogs they're literally like the closest thing to humans. They're so brilliant.
Yeah.
And, in some cases. So I'm curious, actually, I had another mediumistic dream a few months ago after grandfather, and it was their dog. His name was Laddie, and I'm like at their house, and he's talking to me.
Sure.
And he we're in the garage at Moo and Joe's house, where I spent a lot of time as a kid. And he's like, "Hey, so good to see you." Super happy, this golden retriever. And he's like, I'm staying as a dog. He's like, this human thing is way too complex. But we were talking telepathically in the dream.
Exactly.
And he was this joyous, happy dog. And he's like, "You humans, man, that's too complex. This dog thing's for me." And it was just like, wow, I woke up from that. And so I'm just kind of remembering that dream now, but I woke up feeling like I had communication with him. And I'm curious, are you having that experience of communicating with these dogs?
I work with the woman that trained me. She was she's an animal communicator. She trained me the animal Reiki as an animal Reiki practitioner, certified as. She owns a farm, but before doing that work, she was going to get a job in forensics. Okay, with the police. She went to college for that, and she started getting into dogs instead. So her skills as forensic, she became an animal behaviorist, a dog trainer, right? So she goes on to animal communication. And one of my good friends too, this woman's name who trained me, Eden Zook, right? Cool name, Zook. She was trained by my friend Danielle McKinnon, who was like one of the leading animal communicators. It does happen. I would have to just, it's a different way to communicate with them too, though, in pictures. But you get, you're thinking, is this really them or is this me? You have to ask the owner. And I freaked a few people out at the dog park that don't know what I do.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
right.
Is your dog peeing on the plant and the plastic on the corner? They're like, how did you know? And how do I had to shut my mouth. Well, how do I say that? Well, I just said, oh, well, my dog's doing it too,
Yeah.
But it is happening. It's not. I'm more into the healing with animals. I'm connecting to them on a soul to soul level anyways. So there is some type of communication going there. But if someone said, John, if I was to ask you, Brandon, right, because we're all going through some type of change, for the people who were listening, I don't know. I always say, you got to have a vision of where you want to go, because you got to aim towards something. Some people will say, I don't know where I want to go. So if I was to say to you, Brandon, and to the listeners, just think about this. If nothing could stop you, if you had full support, if you didn't have to worry about money or anything, you had full support and people around you, what would you be doing?
Yeah.
What would you be doing, Brandon? Think about it.
Yeah.
What would you be doing right there? Me, if I could be working with dogs every single day, I would. That's what I would do. Healing. I'll never give up the work that I'm doing now. It's my passion, but it would be dogs. If I was to say to you, Brandon, if nothing could stop you right now, if financially, whatever, what would you be doing?
Well, I love just you posing that question because it instantly puts you into a state of, I think of an old business partner who used to, very successful guy, and he would say something that was funny. People would give you the reason why not, or, the lawyer would say, oh, you can't do that. No. I understand you can't do it, but what would it look like if you could? And
Right.
it's kind of that energy. You start
Yeah.
thinking of like, well, what if? And once you get into that energy, you really open up potentials and possibilities. I mean, you can instantly, as soon as you started posing that to me, I went into an energetic state of like, all of a sudden all the barriers fall away, and it's like, oh, hold on, I like it here, this feels good.
Hmm.
And I think that's really key to
Yeah.
being it to see it, right?
Yeah.
And feeling it.
Have you been to Europe?
I have not. I really want to go to Europe,
I
and
think Europe now, Brandon. For all those who are listening, he says, "What do you want to talk about mediumship, John?" I said, "Well, let's talk about the soul and how my work is changing or emerging. Watch what's emerging from you, everyone. If something keeps coming back to you, at least do one thing towards it. Where's there a class? You can't just sit there, right? You got to meet your soul halfway. At least do three things a day, simple things. Pick up the phone, go look online, right? And he also said too, if you wanted to do a reading, John, that's fine too. I see Europe calling you,
mm,
right? So, and it
mm,
doesn't mean to go book a ticket. Watch when someone says, "Do you want to go to Scotland? Do you want to go
mhm,
to England?" I
mm,
think when you go there, it's going to give you a whole different perspective.
mm,
Even though I lived in England for 2 years, 3 years studying mediumship, with the spiritualist. So if I could move there, I'd be happy there, right? I'm at
wow.
peace there. But it's such a small country compared to the United States, but yet it gives you a chance to look back at our country,
Mm,
right? And like, oh, wow. So there's so many things that are different, right? But
yeah.
it does open up your eyes. I think there's going to be an opportunity where, and it may be for pleasure, and then
Mhm,
something else is going to come from it too. You got
mm.
photography with you also.
Ah,
Um,
interesting.
do you do photography or any?
I really have gotten to where I enjoy it more and more
Yeah,
in recent years, and
yeah. With the
um,
camera or the iPhone?
and well, it's funny that it's funny because my friend who's an incredible videographer, camera guy, and we did the show, a late night style show, Optimistic, together. I was just reaching out to him yesterday because we're starting a new sort of membership, regular gatherings here at the Mystic Manor where I live, for conscious community, and
Beautiful.
I'm really wanting to document all of the process that's about to
Yeah.
unfold. So it's a very present for me to like. I mean, on my to-do list in front of me is figure out the video camera, all that world. But I am also finding that I'm really enjoying it myself. With the Europe thing, it's I'm 99% European mutt, kind of thing, and I've always felt a call to go. I had an interesting experience a month or so ago where I had taken some plant medicine, if you will,
Hmm.
with my partner on a little weekend excursion, and I'm in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I felt for the first time in my life like a spirit. It felt like me or connected to me in a way I had never felt before. And the name
Sure.
Bernard Shaw came to mind. And I didn't know who this was. So I come out of the bathroom, who's Bernard Shaw? And it's
Yeah.
a guy from, 1850s Irish guy. And first we were looking it up and there's like, well, there's a George Shaw, but hold on. He insisted on going by his middle name, Bernard. And then we started looking into him, and he's a playwright and just kind of philosopher type. And when I saw a picture of him, I really got chills. I felt
Wow.
there's some connection there, and he wrote a famous play that became a movie in the 40s that like Audrey Hepburn was in or something. And but I didn't really know who this person was, but he's Irish, and I have that's probably the according to 23andMe, Irish, English, Northern European,
Yeah, and when I
German,
say
French.
Europe, for me, I mean because it's a lot over there.
Yeah.
I'm talking Scotland, London. I
Hmm.
mean Scotland, England. I lived in the countryside of England. I didn't stay in London where I was trained. Ireland, Scotland. Yeah, the castle kind of places there
Yeah.
too. I don't know if it's going to trigger a past life thing or you're just going to change. I don't know. There's a shift. So when
Mm.
an opportunity comes to you, let me just
To go
fix
to
this.
Europe. Mm.
When the opportunity comes to you, where you're invited or to
Hmm.
go,
Mm.
go.
I feel a strong call to go, and
Yeah,
it's I
I don't
wanted
want
to
to
go my
hear.
whole life.
Well, like, how can I? How can I
Yep.
afford?
Yep.
Just figure it out.
Cool. I like that.
Take your kid. Take your partner. Get out.
Yeah, yeah. That idea excites me for sure. So,
Yeah.
and Yeah, I had someone on the show years ago, and she does like tours in Ireland, and it's like the Celtic sort of takes you to these sacred sites and things like that. And
Yeah,
both me and my partner's last name is Fahey. She's very Irish, and and it's like that would be cool to go on like a
yeah,
spiritual expedition and see some of these magical
sure.
sites that are part of the our lineage.
Remember how you just said you were, do the
Hmm.
social media, do.
Hmm.
I have been kicking it, kicking it for 20 something years, right? Where you write a book, and then a year later it gets published, and then you're working on something else here. People, what I didn't do, because my career accelerated. I mean, I went from just being unknown to be in front of 3,000, 4,000 people with Hay House on
Amazing,
stage with Wayne Dyer, Greg Brain, your
amazing.
song. I mean, what?
He's so cool.
Cool. But what I didn't do that I'm doing now is I'm stopping. I just want to get off the wheel
Yeah,
and just look at the accomplishments that I have instead of just, if you don't step back when you step back, you can look at your life in a different way instead of being in it. You have to step back too, though, because do pat yourself on the back too, though, Brandon, because you've been doing podcasts way before podcasts, and everybody is doing them now too. So pat yourself on the back
yeah,
also. And I bet you also, with your experience too, if anything shifts, you could teach people. I mean, you can be on any podcast, anybody can get it, but do they know how to interview? Do they
yeah,
know how to be on one? Do they know how to look for topics? I'll
yeah,
get mom and pops emailing me, and I try to do as many as I can, but with my time, I can't,
yeah,
except for a Positive Head podcast.
yeah,
Well, of course, because I did you a while ago, right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity there for you too. I think you're going to be everything's going to be fine with you and your kid.
Mm.
You got two kids or just the one?
Just the one, just the one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um,
I'll leave that alone.
yeah, that's funny
Yeah.
because last night my partner brought up it's something, conversation we haven't really had uh, too much, but she was like, it's weird for me to think that I may never be a mother and maybe I'll freeze my eggs. And like we had this whole conversation last night,
Right.
but she would be a wonderful mother. And yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Never know.
Yeah. So my work is changing, and I'm just, as I'm writing, and I'll just see where it goes too. And I started back before COVID, I started, people have memberships like you said, right? I
Mm-hmm.
started
Mm,
mysoulcommunity.com. It's a
mm,
group where like-minded people can go learn about the soul. It's not a mediumship. Somebody said to me, now this is interesting. A colleague's husband who I'm good friends with said, why don't you do a membership on mediumship? No, no,
mm-hmm.
it's too much.
Yeah,
Meaning too much. It's a lot of work. I mean, with mediumship, it's a whole different. I'd rather teach you, go to the source, the soul, and if that ability is there, fine. So I've been doing that. I'm going into just in the middle of my 4th year of it.
mm,
So next year it'll be 5, and I still get members every. I'm on once a month with them, or I do a podcast once a month. They get a
cool.
lesson, and I love it, and I'm passionate about it too, though. So I teach them all about the soul and soul purpose, and about the blueprint. Look at the things that's happened into your life, everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are certain people in your life, right? That's part of your blueprint. Some are steering you towards where you want to go, and some aren't, right?
Yeah.
What the person that brought me out to LA, she was a big influence on me. If it wasn't for her working at a photography studio, I was her manager, helping her in LA to do a shoot for one of the big record companies. If she didn't ask me, do you want to come to LA? I'll pay for you. You just help me with the equipment. I never would have.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who
Right.
knows? I maybe never would have went to LA and would have been in the city,
Yeah.
doing something else. So it's amazing. We all have a blueprint. It's finding
Yeah.
the key things in your life.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating because those little things that can just be such a linchpin, like a critical moment that you don't even realize, like, oh,
That's
an
right.
invitation to come to LA. And it's like, oh, okay. And, it's a whole timeline,
Yeah.
I remember the first time actually, uh, what really led me on my spiritual path was meeting someone who claimed to have some psychic ability, and she did
Hmm.
things that really, like, oh wow, kind of validated what she was saying, and it opened,
Sure.
I was a young guy, and it opened my mind. I had been raised very conservative Christian, and so soon thereafter I went to get a psychic reading for the first time, or impromptu. I saw someone, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and she gave me a reading. It really was powerful. She's like, "Oh, I see you in a cold place like Chicago, working in business." And at that time, I was planning to move to Chicago and work in business, with my uncle. And then she's like, "But there's this whole other path in like music and California," and which is what ended up happening. And so
Sure.
I always look back on that like, oh, how cool. She's seen potential timelines, right? There is the Brandon. I think, I'm curious what you think, that went to Chicago and worked in business. There is a version that came to and I think that's a really fascinating thing to understand.
Well, I love that she didn't. I mean, some people go to psychics and the psychic like, no, this is going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
do. A friend of mine says I don't do predictions. I do probabilities.
Probability. I always say, if someone gives you definitive run, I agree with you. I think what you're saying is 100% the way it works. My own.
Exactly. And I think you took that route, and it's always a choice in front of us, right?
Yeah.
I could have stayed, I worked at the Marriott Hotel, banquets. I worked at a bank. I work for Teledyne Controls right there, and if it's still there in your area, for the aeronautics company. I was the Cadbury Rabbit for the a temp agency in Santa Monica.
I wouldn't guess.
Yeah, I was a Cadbury Rabbit dressed in that suit, man, at the stores giving out those eggs. I would have done anything. But what brought me to LA was an agency, a talent agency from acting, modeling in Santa Barbara. That's why I literally went out there. Never went out to Santa Barbara, ended up in LA. And one thing led to another. But so watch for that pull of where you go. But I could have stayed if I had I got to go to England with an invite. Now, I've never been to England. The way I was raised is we never have any luck. I was raised in a very alcoholic, abusive home with my dad. Very bad. And I could have went that way and said, well, who do I think I am? I'm too afraid to go. It was so put in my face that it's like, here you go. I couldn't ignore it. And I trusted it, and it felt right. And I fell in love with England, and one thing led to another. And we'll see where it goes. We really will. I never thought I'd be still doing this work. 30, 20, I've been with Hayes for 2002. I signed my first contract.
Wow.
Yeah. Amazing the way my life, I lived, Australia, toured in Europe, Australia twice, all across the United States. So I'm slowing down now.
Yeah.
I'm slowing down now. All the, helping people come up and teach them about soul purpose and their passions. Yeah. And hopefully that they go for it too. Because you're shifting too. You told me something's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm curious what you feel. We touched a little bit on this, like, this idea that the veil is thinning perhaps, and more people's gifts and things are coming online. So I'm curious what you foresee as, of course the world is in such a odd place. You look back 20, 30 years ago, and now it's like you've got AI and you've got all these things, you have people like Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, saying, oh, if you're alive in 5 years, you could live to be 500. Like, it's like curious, you've been on this long view of sort of these spiritual topics and information and tapping into it with your sensitivity and gifts. So I'm curious what do you foresee happening next?
I think, there is a lot happening in the world,
right?
Yes, right. I think we all have a choice too, though, right? All these foundations that you thought we had, whether it's the financial business, all these institutions, school, financial, everything's changing. Nothing's just, everything's changing, and, politics, finances, educate, everything is changing, people. But the one thing that remains solid is your soul, right? That's the one foundation that's there. That's not going to go anywhere or shift or, so I think our souls are getting stronger and brighter. And a lot of people are having a lot of psychic experience, mediumistic experience, but it's natural to have this ability anyways. But I don't know 100%. Maybe my buddy Greg Braden, right, who's with Hayhouse, too brilliant.
I love
person.
Greg Braden. He's
oh my
amazing.
God, he's such a great guy, right?
Such a cool guy.
Oh my God, I've known him for years. He calls me soul brother. He's so brilliant. But something that is definitely happening, whether it's quantum physics or the quantum field, you got Joe Dispenza out there, something is happening. And people don't know where to go. Should I study this? Should I study this?
Yeah.
Go with the one thing at a time, because people will take the Reiki classes, the healing classes, the mediumship classes, the psychic classes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One thing at a time, not what someone else has said. What are you drawing? I don't care if it's I don't care if it's floral arrangement, right? If you're being drawn to that, go for that. But I think that people are having psychic mediumistic experience doesn't mean to become one. It doesn't mean to, that's a whole nother thing to be a professional at this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy. And people forget you are the equipment.
Yeah, right.
I am the equipment. I am the antenna. You know what I mean? It's not coming from me. It's coming through me. You have to learn the mechanics of that too.
Yeah.
So I think that we'll become even more aware. I think it's a gift other people don't know how to handle. That's why you got Dr. Judith Orloff, who's teaching all this stuff about empathic. She's right there in LA, in your neck of the woods, Brand. You ever have her on?
No,
Judith
I haven't.
Orloff?
No.
Brilliant. She's a psychiatrist, but yet she's an intuitive. She's a professional psychiatrist raised by 2 MD doctors. Brilliant, grounded person. She lives right in your area, right around the corner.
I'm going to make a note right now to check her out and see.
Dr. Judith Orloff. Her first book was Second Sight. And now she wrote also the Survival Guide for Empaths. And she just has another one out, a brand new one. But, she's brilliant. I think that people just need to get grounded too, though. I mean, you got to stop once in a while, get off the Ferris wheel once in a while too. Yeah. Everyone talks about meditation. It doesn't mean chanting in a cave with incense ringing gongs, right?
Yep, right.
It just means go out. If you live near a beach, take those shoes off and go and learn to do meditation in motion. Which is a walking meditation. Get quiet so you can get rid of and your soul is trying to get your attention, Britton, all the time.
Yeah.
Dreams, intuition, synchronistic events, and wake-up calls. It's all happening, right? Yeah. And it's tries and tries. But how can you even follow its advice? Some people don't even know it's their soul talking to them, right? With so much outside noise going on. Yeah. If you can just get quiet, I don't care if it's a simple meditation class, right? Preferably with the group. I know, we're still coming out of COVID, not coming out of it. We're out of it, but yet people are still hesitant to go to, some certain events. So any type of meditation class, Tai Chi class, get quiet so you can hear the whispers of your soul talk to you, and you should be guided little by little by little.
Yeah. And I think the more you lean into that, the louder it gets and the clear. It's like any muscle, right? You're working out. And I think what you said makes sense. It's like everyone can shoot a basket. Not everyone came to be, LeBron James, right?
Right.
And so, yes, it's in you.
Well, everybody can learn to play the piano. Doesn't mean you're going to, be a professional.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I'm curious, I love story time, obviously. And I'm sure you've got some incredible stories up your sleeve from, over the years, story of synchronicity or serendipity or spirit communication that, anything fun that comes to mind when I ask this question that you'd like to share?
About like a reading or something, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a reading that was really, memorable for you, or, some sort of your own sort of synchronistic event. I mean, you said you're writing a book about these sorts of things. And I love stories of synchronicity, or something that have been just like literally a go-to question for all these years. And and I just love sharing them.
Well, there's so many stories and readings. Well, I was doing a cruise a number of years ago, and that's another thing. I want to go on a cruise where I can just be the guest, not the teacher. I just want to, you know what I mean? Let me do the, but I'll get there, and it's me saying, okay, I'm booking a cruise. One time, it's the ones that surprise you. There was a woman on the boat. She wasn't part of our group, but she saw that I was there with a bunch of people. We would bring like 200 people, 300 people on the boat, one of those big, And she said, John, look, I'm not part of this group, but can I ask you something? I said, sure. She said, I got a reading from you. I don't know if it was in public, Brandon, or in person. She said, you mentioned to me, I'm not a medical doctor, nor do I claim to be one on TV, right? I had to say that. You can't give medical advice per se, unless you got those letters behind your name, right? Okay. And we say that this is only entertainment value. We're not, it's not, I'm not a therapist, not a counselor. She said to me, you gave me a reading once, John, and you said something about my thyroid. You mentioned something about the thyroid, that if I ever go to the doctor, maybe just have them check it out. I didn't say anything. She said, John, I had a cancerous tumor that I didn't know about.
Wow.
If you didn't say that to me and I didn't bring it up to my doctor, it would have spread.
Yeah.
Right. And I went, of course, she started to tear up. I started to tear up because those are the ones that are special to me. Those are the ones that are special. Every
Beautiful.
story about synchronicity of how I went to the SPCA to, I will tell you this. So I've had the CODA fund with the SPCA, the NHSPCA, and I do it every year. And I help raise $250,000 to help save lives of the animals that couldn't afford. $250,000.
It's incredible.
Right? I'm like, oh my God, if I didn't get that little white dog, every time I drove by the SPCA, I would hear in my head, do something for them. Do something for them. Month after month, not every time. The dog's now 2 or 3, 4 years old. I finally had the nerve, because I'm like, what am I going to do? Walk? Not everybody knows who I am, Brandon. I'm not like, on the television series, but I'm known in the business, but not known huge television-wise.
Yeah, right.
So I walk in there and I said, could I see the marketing person? And I sit down and I said, look, my name is John Holland. I don't know if you know me. I said, I'm local. I said, but is there anything I can do to help raise money? She goes, oh, we know who you are. And yes, you can.
Cool.
The woman who was talking to me also has been to Lilydale in New York, the spiritualist place in Lilydale. And she's studied psychic ability. So that's how it all started. And then one thing led to another. Last year, when my dog passed away, 2 years before he passed away, a woman reaches out on Instagram. I don't communicate with people on Instagram and TikTok. And you want me? Go to my website. Because I think people, they're getting a little lazy. No disrespect. It's like, do you do readings? I don't have time to look through.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to direct message
because there's over there. Yeah.
Right. There's so many imposters out there and frauds on your line. So, go to my website. But there was one woman who I was drawn to, and she was a friend of Bruce Weber, who's a famous photographer. Think Dolce & Gabbana and Calvin Klein black and white back in the day. That's his work. And she had something on dogs, and she wanted to share with me. So I could see she lived in Wyoming, and little did I know, right, that this woman, very, very wealthy, very wealthy. I didn't want anything. She didn't want anything from me. I met her. She came to the I Can Do It conference in Florida last year. We just hugged. She didn't want anything. She made a donation to the CODA fund about a year and a half ago for $5,000. And I went, well, thank you so much. Or her foundation did, or her dad's foundation. And then a year later, another 10.
Wow.
I went, wow, thank you so much. Her dad started a foundation. He helped production of metal. His grandfather had it. His father had it. He inherited, which is her dad. He passes away, has a foundation where they help animals, education. And she said, listen, she called me on the phone and she said, John, has the SPCA got a hold of you? And I said, no. And I said, why? She says, listen, I've been waiting for them to tell you, but I can't wait anymore. I said, what is it? She goes, it was only 10 days since I lost my dog, Coda, little West Highland Terrier. Wow. Brilliant dog. And of course, I'm weepy. And she said, listen, I want to do something. Coda wasn't just your dog. He was your friend. He's your companion. He's your son. But I don't have kids. And I said, okay. She goes, I want to donate. She said, do you know if you donate a certain amount of money to the SPCA, you can have your own room dedicated to your animal? I went, okay. And she said, I want to donate 60, here it comes, $1,000 to the CODA fund. Yeah, $20,000 every year for the next 3 years. I said, you want to do what?
Wow.
And I went, what?
Wow.
Tears just flowed out of me. Something like that just blew me away.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want anything. She doesn't want readings or personal visits. She's doing it because her foundation, her dad's foundation, and her family's do this.
Yeah.
So how blessed am I? Because of that little white puppy dog driving by. Think of that.
Yeah.
If I never went in, it was that thought. I don't know if it was my soul, God talking to me.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe the dog was talking to me. I don't know.
Right.
But I followed it. Eventually I went in there, and that's how it all started. One thing led to another. See, those are the kind of stories. that touch me. The ones where people come through with evidence of the afterlife and their mothers, that's always there, and it's in all my books. But it's these stories
Yeah.
that take me helping everybody, and I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I don't need any recognition. If it's helping other people, which we're supposed to do,
Yeah.
then I feel I'm doing my job while I'm here.
Yeah.
So when it comes time for me to go over to the other side, and they're like, "Here he comes! Open the door! Hurry!"
Yeah.
I'm going to. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. One of the things that's always fascinating me, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but it just popped in my head, is I always really enjoyed the show years back with, remember Caesar Milan? Did you ever watch that show?
Still on. I've had different versions of
is
him.
it?
Yes.
It's so fascinating the way he's, decoding how to communicate with these animals.
Yeah.
It's like,
Some people with him too. I like his work. Some people think it's too hard because you've got the gentle kind of training too,
Yeah,
though.
right.
But when you see the woman Eden Zook, right? She would work with the difficult dogs that come to the SPCA that might have been from the streets or fighting.
Mm-hmm.
She helped train them so they can go to forever homes. When I see the TV show, the many versions that Caesar Milan has, he's on again.
Okay.
How you have somebody struggling with their dog, pulling on the leash, and he's just it's amazing. But it's amazing. He takes them to his camp, at the place too. I love his work. And as a matter of fact, speaking of Caesar, so I say to the Hay House organizer once, the event person, Wayne Dyer was one of the main speakers, Marion Williamson's, the big names up there. I said, have you ever had Caesar Milan, the dog trainer, on? She goes, no, but I'll take, So sure than shit. Guess who's one of the speaker for the I Can Do It conference a number of years ago? Caesar Milan. He got on stage, acted just like he was brilliant. And I said to him afterwards, it was like a dinner, and I said, so has Hay House asked you before to be on? He goes, no, this is our first time. Now, I didn't say I got him on there, but it was his wife too, that he was married to at the time, brilliant. He was the nicest guy.
Cool.
And quiet.
Yeah.
Quiet. You think because he's like this too, though?
Yeah.
But I think, his work with animals, I love. Also the gentleness. So we'll see where animals are taking me. Brandon, maybe I'll do, I don't know if I'm drawn. I can do Reiki on people too. We'll see where the healing stuff takes me. Where I'll do more healing. I don't know. But all I know is tune up the equipment, John.
Yeah.
And if this work is meant to be pushed aside, it'll be provided.
Yeah.
It'll be provided. Sure. If you are a believer that the universe is abundance, all right, if you really believe that, then you should be okay. Because you're like,
never
how can I do that?
For anything, you just are trusting that you'll have exactly what you need and led to where you need to go. It's I also think, and I'm curious, and I know we're getting down to it here with our time, but I remember, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head now, but years ago I had an intuitive on the show who her whole thing was claiming to connect with animals, and how the way she put it that was always kind of stuck with me is, if an animal comes into your life, it is definitely a part of your soul family.
Soul tribe. Yeah.
Anytime you have an animal, that is a soul that you're very connected to, beyond.
They choose us, by the way.
What's that?
I believe animals choose us. You think that you rescued them? They rescued me. And my dog, he taught me, golden retrievers are one thing, labs are another thing.
Yeah.
Terriers are a whole nother thing too.
Right.
He taught me patience.
Mm-hmm.
Not just patience. He taught me it's okay to be by yourself, right? He taught me independence too. He would let me love him, but not too much.
Yeah.
He would go to women. He would let me hug him, but not too much. He taught me independence too. And I knew when it was time for him to pass, he was going to choose while I was away, so I wouldn't be around, or it was going to happen under our rules. He passed away. I only had 4 days to say goodbye to him. Unexpected.
Wow.
I know. And I don't know if it was better fast or watch him sick for months. And someone said, do you ever think, John, because I can be a lot, okay? I can be a lot. People like me all have a lot of anxiety too, right? I think it's just energy.
Yeah.
The Eden Zook said to me, John, did you ever think? And I said, I never had a chance to be with him long before he passed. And I said, John, stop it. You were with him for 16 years, all through COVID. He was probably, please get out of the house. I believe that she said maybe he decided to go that way to make it easier for you. You see what I mean? And he did. Yeah. So will I get another dog? Absolutely. Is my heart ready? Absolutely. Is my lifestyle ready? No.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot. It's a lot. It's like having a child, right?
Yeah.
I've always
and I don't know
said,
if I could do the puppy thing either. I'll probably rescue an animal. And who knows? When I went into just really quickly, because I know it's all about dogs, but when I went to that hospice, old dogs go to Holland.com, right? I thought can I do it?
Yeah.
He passed. Am I going to be sad seeing these animals that are sick? And no, there was no sadness when I walked into the room. All I felt was love. And they're drawn to the energy. They stay in it, that bubble, and they let you touch them for as long as they want, and then they'll walk away. So brilliant. We'll just see where this goes. So I wish you the best too, though. Watch for those little signs, Brandon, where you're going. Get your ass to Europe when you're invited.
All right. Okay? All right. I'm definitely, feel the call. So that,
You're a good man, Brandon. Pat yourself on the back, my friend, once in a while too. You've got this. There's lots of people that don't know how to do podcasting. And and it doesn't have to be for $5,000 in 4 parts. Brandon will train you.
Yeah.
We'll just see. Be excited to where you're headed, even though you don't know, like you said, and you'll be fine, my friend.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that reflection. It's
And you thought this was all going to be about talk about the dead people today or something, right? Yeah.
Hey, I
wonder why you didn't get that. Hey, for anyone listening, I sent a form on this on some of today's topic.
Yeah.
For some reason it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. I said, let's just trust that. I said, ask me how my work has changed, and we'll just take the conversation from there. So maybe some of your listeners got one piece that's going to work for them. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe this was for you today.
I would say all of it. Right.
Okay, Peter Finch, moo. All right.
Yeah, if Peter Finch starts knocking on your door in the middle of the night, let me know.
Yeah, anything they want to know about me too, Brent, just go to johnholland.com.
Cool.
Everything is there. Even the Q&As there. There's resources to help people no matter what situation you're in. And I got some online stuff. I'm going to be I'm still in different states. So, but thank you to having me on here too, Positive Head.
Yeah, I was looking up when we were. If you just heard music pop up, I was looking up what episode number you were on. Episode 672 many years ago. So I wanted to throw that out there, and it automatically played by mistake where I went to look at it. So that's why you heard it. But
and what episode is this today? Do you know what episode this is?
This is probably 2300 and something.
Does that mean 2,300 broadcasts that you've done?
Yeah, exactly. Between me and my co-host has done some of those. About 4 years ago, I had a co-host start doing a few days a week. I was doing 5 myself, and then 3, and she was doing 2. And now we've just kind of scaled back to doing 1 interview a week. And we'll see where it goes in the future.
Have you been? One last thing, I know we're going on and on. Have you been invited to be on Have you been invited to be on any panels?
Years ago. It's been a while.
So if it was a big panel about media and podcasting and you were invited, would you think about go?
I'd love to. I'd love to go.
I'm not making, I said, is it a thought or is it an intuitive thing I'm getting? I don't know, but watch for that. I'm seeing you on a panel, also on a stage too, for who you are. And I think you're bigger. Well, you are big in your way with podcasting, but I look at you bigger than you're seeing yourself.
Oh,
you understand?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I feel like there's a lot more to come. And I felt like the last few years of my life have been sort of like, if you go back 4 years ago, I created this awesome show that's sort of the evolution of this podcast. And the podcast was on such a wave then already. And then, COVID hit. And I feel like what's happened for me the last few years have really been a lot of internal work, a lot of like sort of shadow stuff that I wouldn't even acknowledge.
That's what COVID did. It brought up all the stuff there, and people are going to have spiritual awakenings all the time, where they're going to question their belief system, and they don't know what to do about it. Spiritual awakening is just everything's happening at once. You got to just stay grounded, one thing at a time with that too. Though I'm excited for you.
Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate you, and your vote of confidence means the world, coming from someone who's done so many incredible things, and perhaps we can Yeah. Maybe you're out. I don't know if you're ever out this way, but maybe we
I
can
do. I do
come
go
here.
out there. Remember, I lived in West LA for 12 years, so I know plenty of people out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's stay in touch, and yeah, maybe you can come through. And like I said, we're about to start these events here at Mystic Manor, where we have regular gatherings, and we're going to start with some sort of a speaker, and
Will you
just
please look up, like I said, Dr. Judith Olaf too? She's
done.
right in your area. She probably lives right next door to you, right around the corner. Just
I've
tell her
already sent a
John Hall.
message.
Mention my name.
Yep,
Mention my name to her,
yep.
and she'll know that I've already done this. And just mention my name because she was just on my community. I know her really, really well. She'd be a
Cool,
great guest, good speaker, man, and a doctor. I love that.
cool.
It's
Yeah,
like it's always good to have a psychiatrist in your back pocket. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And who's an intuitive.
I love having that other scientific side of it, to
That's
bring
right.
and help, for the people who slant more that way. It's good to have all facets, right?
Great being with you, my friend.
Thank
Thank you.
you, John. I do have one final question. It's
Sure,
my
sure.
cliche closer. I'm
Yeah.
curious how it compares to when I asked it to you years ago, probably. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to John Holland?
Hmm. Well, I think I've said that too. I think the meaning of life is to experience being in this soul. I mean, your soul being in this body. The meaning of life is to be all that you can be.
Mm.
We chose to be here, by the way, guys. Okay, you chose to be here. So for those people that are whining, you chose to be here, and you were born with that soul blueprint. So meaning of life too, using your gifts, talents, ability to help others. All
Mm.
right, and remember, your attention goes where your awareness is. Right.
Yep.
So if you're focused on the bad, that's all that's going to keep coming. If there's a lot of shit happening in the world, everyone, don't keep looking at the news.
Yep.
All right, look at the good things that are happening also, and you do matter.
Yeah.
You do matter. Okay. One kind act, keep being kind. One kind act can create a ripple effect that reaches farther than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. You buy what you pay attention to, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, thank you, John. So inspiring. And thank all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode. Till next time, journey well.